Welcome into Triple Zeros. I'm your host, Josh Buckhall. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at JoshGBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports website, clockersports.com, and the email address is clockersports@gmail.com. And of course, you can follow the show on Facebook and Twitter at 30spod. That's the number 3 zeros and pod. And as we started off last week, man, I told you we were getting back into doing interviews because I really love talking to some of the amazing people that are going on around the sports world. We hear about the athletes, but we don't hear about the people covering the athletes not nearly enough and get their side of things. Trust me, as somebody who tries to report on teams, you don't often get to share what your opinion is on things, and you get a lot of vitriol for kind of just telling what's happening, reporting on what's going on. And people are like, you're stupid. You're like, wait, that's not even my thought, but whatever. And somebody that I'm sure knows all about that is my guest today. He is Pat Benson Jr. He writes for All Hawks of Sports Illustrated. You've seen him, you've read his book. You better have read his book, The Kobe Bryant Sneaker History, 1996 to 2000. Pat Benson Jr. Follow him on Twitter, by the way, at Pat_Benson_Jr. Pat Benson Jr., thank you for joining the show.
Hey, man, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm a fan of your work, so this is exciting for me.
Oh, dude, I just love seeing your enthusiasm and your interaction with fans and stuff on Twitter is great stuff to me because honestly, I don't think you get, like I said, enough personality from sports writers because we're so wrapped up in things, man. So I love that you take time out to actually be a person.
Yeah, you get a lot of personality with me. And that's not for everybody. That's fine. Different strokes for different folks. But sometimes people will tell me, to stick to sports or whatever. I'm like, bro, this account was running way before I got this job. So.
Yeah, and you know what? Before we talk about that, because I want to talk about you getting this job and your path to journalism, but that's the thing right there, right? Is like I can't my entire becoming a journalist was part of my upbringing. Like that was just the path, whatever. Like I said, people don't often understand that you're kind of you're framing things. You just have to provide the framework so that oftentimes you can come back later and hey, remember we talked about this? Well, now here's this happening. So I do want to talk about that, your journey into journalism, as it were. Have you always wanted to do this, or how did you get started?
Man, honestly, I just kind of fell into it, to be honest. I always, like grew up playing sports, loving sports, that sort of thing. But I was a political science major in college. I was heavily involved in politics. I even ran for a local city council race in my mid-20s. And quickly realized that that's not for me. So I started covering local sports, then just kind of kept moving up. And eventually, I'm where I'm at today. It hasn't always been linear. Like everybody else in the business, I've been laid off before and had setbacks, but it's been awesome. I found my passion, and I love every minute of it. It's crazy, and I still love it.
One of the things that I was told when I first got into media was if you haven't been laid off, you're probably not really in media. So yeah, that's definitely a rite of passage. Let's talk about, your I know you wrote for Forbes, but I really want to get into that book, The Kobe Bryant Sneaker History. Got my copy. It's on the way. And
awesome.
I was going through, I just got started today, but I got to a point about the foreword, and just talk to me about what inspired you to write the book.
Oh man, it was crazy. So, I'm not a big, I've made it sort of person. That's never been my mentality. But I remember driving back from a Hawks game on MLK Day in 2020 and being like, man, I feel like I've just about made it. And just from there, in January of 2020, man, it just, the whole world just fell apart. And it started with the passing of Kobe Bryant. I detailed that in my book. And then a month later, one of my oldest childhood friends passed away in a car wreck. So that was terrible. Then the pandemic comes around, NBA season gets shut down, and Forbes lets a lot of their contracted writers go. I'm one of them. And then I lose my day job, and the hits just kept coming. And finally, my family and my fiance at the time, now my wife, they said, just take some time, do what you want to do, and just try to figure it out. And so I just focused on writing a book, just summarizing Kobe Bryant's sneaker history. And, I didn't want to profit off of somebody's death. So I donated the proceeds to various charities, local and national. So, I just tried to turn a negative into a positive. And it was a really cool experience during a pretty rough time.
And I said 1996 to 2000. I meant 2020. I apologize. Got to get that right. It's always important to get the facts straight. I was reading through, and you talk about a point where Kobe Bryant had basically had his handshake deal to go pro as opposed to going to college. And I had to ask you before we get into some of the other stuff, the NBA level stuff. Do you think that kind of process would happen now with the NIL deals going on? Do you think he still would have gone straight to the pros, or does he go to college because he can make some money at that point?
I don't know, man. Kobe was such a different cat. Who knows? He was so outside the box. He may have gone and played overseas for a year, or he may have gone to the G League. So who knows? And what I love about him is he always gave different answers. So in interviews, people would always ask him, if you had gone to college, where would you have gone? I heard Duke. I heard
Yeah.
North Carolina. I've heard UCLA before. So who knows, man? He is such an outside the box character, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did what LaMelo Ball did and go play in Australia for a year.
Yeah, controlling his own destiny would definitely seem to be a Kobe Bryant thing.
Yeah. What
Um,
about you, though? I'm interested. What do you think he would have done?
well, I kind of feel like the NIL deal would have allowed him to explore the college thing. I think it kind of lets you not have to rush it and become a pro before you're ready, before your body is ready to take that leap. So
Yeah.
I think we might have been deprived of some good Kobe years and stories had he not had he had NIL available to him. So I kind of grateful that it wasn't around at that point in time.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's shift gears and talk about some current day stuff and get into these Atlanta Hawks, man. We just went through one hell of a season, a lot of ups and downs. Was hoping to see a repeat and an improvement upon their trip to the Eastern Conference Finals a year ago, but that did not happen. What was your takeaway, your biggest takeaway from this season?
Biggest takeaway was it was an incredible season for Trae Young. That's the silver lining is, he really put together a legitimately historically amazing season. Second player in NBA history to lead assists and total points and total assists. So that's the big takeaway. And the second is the team took a step backwards. So not what anybody had hoped for, and but they may have outkicked the coverage a little bit last season, and then they became a little bit complacent. According to Tony Ressler himself, the Hawks team owner, said that they became complacent as an organization. So I think all those, a step back wasn't totally out of the realm of possibilities, although it's not what people in Atlanta wanted to believe. Nobody really wanted that to be the case. So I think they'll be back in the mix again next year, and I think that they'll improve the roster this summer.
It really was kind of a combination of just situations, because not only did they outkick the coverage reaching the Eastern Conference Finals, but then they overestimated how good they actually were and stood pat. Didn't really stood pat in the offseason, but definitely at the trade deadline. And you can hear it when ownership and management are publicly saying that they regret not making any moves. That means that they really regret making moves, because these guys don't like to admit fault anywhere. Cutting a player is as close as you get to them actually admitting fault on anything. I want to know, and you talked about Trae Young's season. That was one of the wildest things, because as they were struggling, I'm sitting here writing stuff like, hey, Trae Young is killing it, guys. Like,
Yeah.
they're not doing good, but Trae Young is really deserving of an all-NBA nod. Was that hard for you, trying to kind of balance out, hey, this guy's doing really well, even though it's not translating to team success necessarily?
Yeah, like you write about it. It's hard to hold two thoughts in your head at the same time. Like, yeah, hey, like teams not doing well, but there's something special going on over here. So it's hard, and also Twitter doesn't always lend itself to nuance
No.
and that sort of thing, that sort of discussion. So yeah, no doubt you get a lot of people saying the Hawks aren't winning. He shouldn't be on All NBA. It's like, bro, what are you smoking? He's
Yeah.
the best point guard in the Eastern Conference, maybe in the league. So it's tough to have nuanced conversations at times. But as a writer in this podcast, you can't let that slow you down. You got to speak the truth the way you see it.
Speaking of nuance, Trae Young there might not be a better example of nuance needing to be had around a player. His defense is the stuff of legends, and not in a good way. People love to talk about how he'll never be great because he can't defend. Are you in the camp that he is never going to be able to lead a team to a championship because of his defensive ability, and do you think he could be a better defender?
No and yes. I think like you, that it's way overblown. Yeah, he's got to improve on defense, and I think he will improve on defense. I think also getting some more help with help alongside of him will make him look better on defense. So I'm not tripping on that at all. And no offense to Kevin Herter, but he's not exactly the ideal defensive backcourt next to Trae and Bogey. He's been dealing with knee injuries basically since he arrived in Atlanta. So obviously the Hawks perimeter defense as a whole needs some work. And by all accounts, Trae has an amazing work ethic. So I'm positive that he's going to improve as a defender. And like you said, it's like become a meme at this point. And people like to take narratives and just run with it. And you just if you watch the game and you're familiar with these players, all right, man, it's not that bad.
It really isn't. I've often said that the only thing that I want him to do is be more active in passing lanes.
Yeah.
His IQ is way too high to not get more steals. That's all I say.
Yeah, no doubt. And sometimes you got to wonder, like, how much energy is he putting out on offense?
Mhm.
What he's doing, I'm sure that's got to play into it.
Yeah, well, you hide him on defense not only to hide him from getting attacked, but also to allow him to rest some because
Yeah,
he
for
was
real.
he
He's
was
not getting
everything.
much rest,
Not at all.
and it's real disappointing. I've written about before is that such a great season ended on such a sour note for Trey with that Miami Heat series. He's going to catch so much, a disproportionate amount of hate this offseason and doubt when they're going to take this one little sliver at the end of the season and ignore the other 99% of it. So that's a bummer.
There were some questions about that, the way that they were operating after the season
Yeah.
because Nate
Yeah.
McMillan took over last year and they went on that run. But then this year, when he switched over the coaching staff and implemented more of his style of doing things, they kind of got bogged down a little bit easier. Do you think that there needs to be a kind of a switch back to what they were doing, more emphasis on moving the ball around this year, even without making any roster changes?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have to move the ball around more often, and they, definitely got to reevaluate some things, and they've got to be more flexible in the adjustments they make, but in game, everything else, because I think everybody could see it coming a mile away, especially as the Hawks post players were banged up. Capella and Collins were dealing with injuries. We know Eric Spoelstra and the Miami Heat are going to throw the kitchen sink at Trey, and it was a failure on the coaching staff's part to not have backup plans A through Z ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And we just didn't see enough adjustments. So I don't know what the right answer is. I'm not a great X and O's guy, but I mean, I do know that I can see when a player is going to be targeted defensively. So you need to have backup contingency plans ready.
Yeah, I talked about it throughout the season. Nate McMillan's steadiness is often a double-edged sword because when things
Yeah.
are rocky, that nature can get you through some tough times.
Yeah.
But also, it can come with late adjustments that are often too late or never come at all, and that's kind of the give and take that you have there. You touched on it a bit. Bogdan Bogdanovic just had another knee surgery, second right knee surgery on that right knee.
Yeah.
He's going to be out until September. Where are you at on Bogey and his future with the Hawks?
Man, that came out of left field. That surgery took place 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Right,
Why
quietly.
did they not? Yeah, well, you are not going to communicate that with us. So that was wild. I'm sure the story will come out eventually. The full story will come out eventually. And man, it just seems like that's going to tank any chances of including him in a trade. Maybe it was a galaxy brain move by Bogey. He's like, you know what? I'm going to get this knee taken care of
Right
this
now.
summer. Yeah, maybe that was it. Maybe he's playing 4D chess and I'm just missing it. But yeah, so if I had to guess, I'd say he's staying put now. So I guess he'll finish out his contract, or maybe he'll come back and increase his worth in this upcoming season. But man, he's going to miss an entire season, an entire off season of training. That's tough for a guy who's turning 30 years old in August.
Yeah, it's bad when you got to find out from Serbian news that one of your
Right.
key players has had surgery and is out here resting up. I went on his IG and he's got his leg in the air cast. I'm like, dang dog, you were whatever.
Yeah, no. I mean, and it's not the first time. Like I remember one time after a game, Nate McMillan told us, he's like, "We're not telling you everything about what's going on with John Collins' injuries." And then we find out like a week or two, it's like, bro, his finger is pregnant.
Yeah, right.
Just so you know.
That thing was nasty, man. That was gross.
Yeah, that and then obviously the foot injury as well. So man, we just need a little bit more transparency if you don't mind.
Well, they came into the season, remember, with a few guys that had procedures that nobody knew about till they got into the training camp. We're like, wait a minute, like what are we doing here? So this has been kind of a
couple
theme.
PRP shots.
Yeah, this has been kind of a running theme. So like you said, it kind of precludes putting Bogdanovich in any trades, and his salary was really going to be good for matching purposes. Now, how does that affect the Hawks' assets? Because Bogey's hurt. Gallo's probably one of their most malleable assets, but he's older. Collins has been injured. Kevin Huerter kind of stagnated this year. Hunter's been like, where are you at on the actual value of their assets as opposed to their perception around the league?
I think it's, and you know this because you cover the NBA more at large. local fan bases have a real tendency to overvalue their players and think the world of them. When you get outside of that bubble, it's like, man, they don't value DeAndre Hunter the way the Hawks fans do, and that sort of thing. So I think malleable is the right word. They could go in several different directions. I'd be lying to you if I said I knew which direction they're going to go into. If I had to guess, I think Gallo will be waived before July 1, and he'll be owed $5 million. They could stretch that out over 3 seasons, and that would be basically nothing. That could be one move, but man, I don't know. They could go in several different directions. I think trades will likely be the best way for them to improve the roster, just because they don't really have the cap space to go out and sign any free agents.
So let's get into it because, like we talked about, ownership has been vocal about their moves. Steve Koonin went on Dukes and Bell the other day and said, "Hey, I expect us to be active. When your top CEO or your top executive is talking like that, you can expect some moves to be made." Now, he wouldn't put a figure on it, but there have been some hefty rumors floating around. Rudy Gobert's been linked. DeAndre Ayton has been linked. We've seen Jeremy Grant. Of those three, which one do you think is the most likely, and which one would you prefer?
I don't know, man. Like you said, it's been just about everybody. Zach LaVine, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert. Uh, I feel like DeAndre Ayton, the sign and trade seems like a stretch.
Mhm.
Rudy Gobert seems like an expensive move for not a whole lot of return, in my opinion. There's some people who are really big Gobert defenders. Donovan Mitchell is a great player, but then again, we're sacrificing a lot of size and defense. So right now, I guess I wouldn't be surprised if they just go with Grant from the Pistons. That might be the most logical move, but he's not an all-star. And historically speaking, man, you need at least two all-stars if you want to win a championship.
To your point about fan bases overvaluing their own players, it's funny
Mhm.
because when you start, when I first joined the Hawks beat, we got done at that playoff, and I was like, okay, look, this is where you got to improve. And people were like, no, man, you're crazy. You're just
Yeah,
a hate. I'm like, no, no, literally, you got to do this because people are going to improve around you. And, it played out. So when you see the Hawks and you see the Jeremy Grant thing, now they're a big competition for Jeremy Grant, I believe, is going to be the Portland Trailblazers.
hmm
When you see Jeremy Grant, and you just said you need two All Stars, if that's your only move, is that doing enough to catch up with the Bostons, with the 76ers, Milwaukee? Because Milwaukee wasn't even healthy this postseason. Like, is that
yeah,
enough?
that's a good point. That's a good point. No, that's not enough, man. That's not enough. I mean, he's a great role player. I think he'd be a great third best player on a contending team, but still, you're missing that second All Star. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Grant's going to be an unrestricted free agent after the 22-23
Yeah,
season.
and he wants a big
So
payday.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, I don't know what direction they're going to take it in, and we'll see, man. Who knows? I think usually after the NBA Finals, usually is when the rumors start coming out, and that's usually when things pick up. So we'll learn a lot here in the next week or two.
Agreed. I totally agree, and I agree with you on your point about Rudy Gobert. The return's not enough for the incremental improvement over Clint Capella when he's right. Now that's a big caveat, but
Hmm.
that's a lot. The rumor I heard was it was Collins, Hunter, like
Yeah,
Bo. Like it was just too much. I'm like, yeah, no. Travis Sling is gonna hang up, laughing the phone in your face, but
yeah. You only I have criticized Travis Schlenk at times. I mean, you got to say one thing. He's definitely a shrewd businessman. Like he's not going to get swindled by anybody.
no, not at all. He comes from a good stock in that regard.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Now, when we zoom out to the league at large, is
Mhm.
there a deal out there that you think the Hawks could make that would put them over the top?
Yeah, I'm sure there's got to be a move out there. I'm not a big ESPN NBA trade machine guy.
Mhm.
Like I'm going to leave that to Bill Simmons. But yeah, I mean they've got the pieces, and the pieces are there. They just got to make it work. I was really not thrilled with like the rumor we heard from Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report that the Hawks might be interested, or he really used strong language. He really believed that the Hawks were interested in Portland's number 7 draft pick and maybe one or two players on their roster like a Josh Hart or an Eric Bledsoe. But that definitely doesn't move the needle at all. So I don't know. I know there are trades to be made, but I'll leave that one up to Travis Schlenk. That's why he gets paid the big bucks.
spot on with
What do
that.
you got?
Well, though you touched on them talking about the draft pick. This was a rumor that we were kind of hearing last offseason too, that the Hawks are interested also in kind of resetting their clock a bit. Can you exist in that middle area where you're kind of also trying to compete, but then you're interested in resetting your clock? So you kind of have to go for it one way or the other, no?
Yeah, you kind of have to go for it. You have to get usually, some veterans, and you usually have to go into the luxury tax. But at the same time, though, man, you got, yeah, as you know, you got to get some young players to fill out the roster, and you got to draft, you got to develop, because that's the lifeblood of an organization. Unless you're the Los Angeles Lakers, you've got to do the dirty work as well, and that's one area. Obviously, everybody has like critiqued the Hawks about this year is McMillan really didn't prioritize the development of Jalen Johnson or Sharif Cooper outside of the G League. So, uh, it's a lot of juggling. You got to go out, you got to get all stars, you got to get into the luxury tax, and then at the same time, you got to fill out your roster with some young guys and develop them as well. But I think you look around the league and you look at some of these teams left standing, they're able to walk and chew gum at the same time. They were able to play their rookies this year and still be in contention. So, yeah, you got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Especially when you have all this rash of injuries that they've experienced the past 2 years, you would think you'd want all your depth to be as prepared as possible at this level.
Yeah, no
Um,
doubt. You want to find out, man. This isn't Major League Baseball. There's no arbitration after
right.
like 5 or 6 years. You got to find out in a hurry if they're worth it or not.
Or so you can move them if they aren't before their
Yeah,
value tanks.
yeah.
Speaking of development, let's talk real quick about where you are on Collins and Herter after they both got big money. We talked about Capella and how the caveat on him is injuries, but where are you on Collins and Herter and their development after they got their extensions and new contract with Collins case last offseason?
I'm definitely higher on Collins. They're both, I would consider both to be very team friendly deals, especially as they progress in time. So I don't think either were bad deals. I think Collins is one of the hardest workers that the Hawks have on their roster. Every year he comes back with something new in his game, which I really appreciate. And he's improved on defense. He's improved on outside shooting. Hopefully next year it might be some ball handling and creating. So definitely high on John Collins. And Kevin, he obviously got off to a slow start at the beginning of the season, but he came along, and the separation between he and Bogey, it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And again, team friendly contract. So I'm definitely much higher on Collins, no doubt. And if I had to make a trade, then I'm driving Kevin to the airport personally.
I wish they would give Collins a defined role. They don't got to tell anybody. Just let him know because it seems like that seems
Just
to be
let
bothering him.
know.
Just tell him because everybody says well he wants a bigger role. I'm like I don't think he wants a bigger role. He just wants to know what he's supposed to be doing out there. Because if you watch him, there are times when he's kind of just running around with his hair on fire.
Yeah, and Nate said he let slip one time. He's like, "Yeah, we don't really call plays for John.
Dude,
We just let him just cook out there. We just let him like figure out just off pick and rolls or rebounds or broken plays or whatever." But no, that's a good observation. Just let him know. You don't have to communicate it with us.
well, and as a guy who's got a military family background, I'm sure he likes that structure. You know what I mean? To just
Excellent
kind of know
point.
what his duties are. And they're just kind of like, no, go ahead, freelance. And he's like, because he can do so much. So he kind of wants to do a little bit of everything, and it's hurting. It really hurts him and his perception around the league. It's weird because people are like, Collins is no good. I'm like, dude, Collins is a specimen. He's a rare kind of
Yeah.
breed.
Yeah, he's only 24. People forget he's the same age as DeAndre Hunter.
And Herter, I think Herter's better suited as a bench option behind. If like a Herter rotation at the small forward position, I think is really solid because Hunter gives you offense and the defense, and then Herter can come in and give you create some ball handling, some sneaky defense, especially against reserves, and then he's got the shooting. So I think he's better off. Him and Bogey on the wings with the backup unit would be something serious. But
No
you
doubt.
gotta replace some of the starters. Jalen Johnson. I was on that bandwagon before the draft. I said if he falls to the Hawks, they have to jump on this, and then it happened. And then we got what we got, which is not much. Where are you on him?
Man, your guess is as good as mine. I don't watch the G League. I saw where he tore it up, so that's promising. But he played less minute. Only one Hawks player in the last 30 years played fewer minutes as a first round draft pick during their rookie season. And man, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I guess we'll find out this upcoming season. They're going to be forced to play him more. So your guess is as good as mine. He tore it up in the G League though, so that's something.
He did, man. And reporting those stats was hurt because they don't necessarily translate, but you're like, look what we could be seeing a glimpse of if he was to be given a slight, like 5 to 10 minutes a game. We're running
That's it.
Shawnee Brown and stuff out there, and oh man, it was painful.
Oh yeah. I forgot about Brown. Yeah,
It was painful.
yeah.
Let's where are you for them next year? Do you see the Hawks taking that step forward, or do you see them kind of staying where they are unless they make some bigger moves than
I'm
we're
op-
hearing?
yeah, I'm optimistic. I think that they're going to make some moves. I think they're going to improve and be higher than an 8 seed. I think they'll avoid the play-in tournament, and from there, it's all about matchups and health and all that good stuff. But yeah, I really do believe that they're going to move the needle this summer and finally get Trey another All-Star caliber teammate. I don't know who it'll be. I mean, maybe I'm just wishful thinking, but for the message, from the top down, it's all, hey, we're going for it.
Yeah, you can't put that message out there and then not deliver. That's some bold
Yeah.
talk. Let's zoom out and talk about the NBA at large and these playoffs. And we'll first talk about what's your biggest impression been of the playoffs so far.
Boston, they have really surprised me. They've been by far the best team since the trade deadline. They go out and get Derek White, which was a team that the Hawks were interested, which was a player the Hawks were interested in, and that really solidified their defensive identity. So it's been cool to see that. It's been cool to see Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum make it work for as a long time. It was are you going to split them up? Who you going to choose? But now we know that they can both coexist. So that's been cool. I've enjoyed watching the Warriors, the latest iteration of their dynasty, get it back together. That's been exciting. So yeah, I'd say, and I love seeing Chris Paul get kicked out of the playoffs or get an early playoff exit. So I was happy about all that. What about you?
I'm with you on that. I think I was surprised. Boston kind of surprised me because regular season is one thing to dominate, but when you go into the postseason and you shut down Kevin Durant, and I know they were the Nets weren't whole, but the work that they did against Kevin Durant, one of the I think probably the more unicorn than the guy that they call the unicorn, Kristaps Porzingis, because of Kevin Durant's longevity and how he's been able to maintain his high efficiency. They stifled him, right? They had him flummoxed, and that was impressive. And then they went up against a Milwaukee Bucks team that I said they weren't healthy, but they still withstood a lot of blows, man. And that resilience, I love resilience. That to me is a really undersold trait in sports, and they just kept taking blows and kept on coming back, and I love that. Not sure that they're gonna be able to do it this in this regard because, as you talked about the Warriors, that their latest iteration is led by a guy who's been here, done that, has heard all the talk, and has his style is one that even the best defense can't stop it. Like where Shaq had that ultimate power and you weren't stopping Shaq, you're not stopping Curry from the logo, no matter how good your defense is, right? So it's kind of tough. And I picked Golden State in 7. Boston, I said, they've got on paper their physicality should be able to take them out, but man, it just didn't seem like. I just don't know if their resolve is strong enough yet.
Yeah,
it's not Warriors level yet.
You're sticking with your Warriors in 7 original prediction.
Sticking with Warriors in 7. I think they're going to have a crack game. Warriors have one of those games every series where you're just like, oh gosh, But I do think that they'll come away with this one in the end.
All right, cool. Well, I'm going to stick with I think I said Boston in 6. It's looking a little dicey now, but I still think this is going to be the year they break through. It maybe also I'm a Lakers fan, so I'm just trying to mentally prepare for their first championship since 2008.
So where are you on your Lakers? Because we were going to touch on that. You jumped the gun on me a little bit, but that's okay. That's okay. Where are you on your Lakers? Their outlook. LeBron is getting up there. The Russell Westbrook experiment did not work out. Where are you? Anthony Davis's health. He hasn't touched a basketball, he said, since April 5th.
Man, Lakers Twitter went crazy yesterday in that video. Was he trolling? Was he messing? Is there an injury or something I missed?
The only other thing I've seen from him. Only other thing I've seen from him was him eating a bunch of crawfish. So it's been a couple of bad looks in back-to-back days.
It has been, man. So on the Lakers, just a complete mess. Depending on who you believe, whoever's idea was to bring in Westbrook was terrible. We all knew that wasn't going to work at the time.
They gave him good pieces.
Yeah, that was it, man. They quickly dismantled a championship team and expeditiously. And I mean, everybody could have said that was a mistake. We knew that one was coming, and now they're stuck with him. And I understand that they don't want to just completely mortgage the future for try to make one last run, I guess, with LeBron. I mean, he's still putting out at a high level, but I don't see how they become a contender with Westbrook on your roster because that contract is just absolutely awful. So they're not winning anytime soon. I don't think.
Yeah, there's bad contracts, there's albatross contracts, and then there's Russell Westbrook's deal. And so
Yeah,
I,
that's bad.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. Take your
Yes.
journalist hat off, put your fan hat
Okay.
on. You're running the Lakers. What is your moves to get them back to another championship? Because Boston's on the verge of passing you guys up for that chip count, man. What's up?
I'm open to everything. I'm open to trading LeBron James. I
Whew.
mean, I'm open to a complete and total overhaul of the roster. That's where I'm coming from. I'm from the Jerry Buss school of thought. The anything goes. My I have no NBA ideology. Like I will go in any direction if it means improving and winning now. So, but I'm a spoiled, entitled Lakers fan. That's where I'm coming from. So that should be no surprise at all.
It's whatever moves gets us to a championship. I totally
That,
get it. That's how it should
that's
be.
yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't know if you watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but I'm fringe. I'm fringe class. So
That's just how it should be. Okay. All right. Well, how about Anthony Davis? Is that your centerpiece going forward? Before I ask you this final one, is that your centerpiece, Anthony Davis?
it was before yesterday, before I
Mm.
saw that video about not picking up a ball in a couple of months. I need to know an answer, and then I will be able to answer your original question. If that's the case, if he's just out here chilling, getting thick, then he's got to go too.
For a guy that's dealt with so many injuries, soft tissue injuries at that, and knick-knack, like, dude, come on, you can't be putting that out there.
And
It's
he's put on a lot of weight too.
yes,
He has really put on a lot. I mean, a lot of it's muscle, but man,
it's still
he
at
needs
six
to
foot
slim
10.
down.
It's not on a very wide frame, like as for all the mass that it is and the force that he puts
Yeah,
on it.
but at the same time, I do want to say, man, they delivered a championship, and they also buoyed the Lakers during the worst year imaginable through Kobe's passing,
Hmm.
through the bubble, through everything. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty harsh on them, but what they were able to accomplish in 2020, you got to give them love for that.
You only get harsh on the teams that have shown you an ability to do better than they're doing right now. So that's
That's a
again,
good
big
point.
market teams should expect big things, or big market fans should expect big things from their big market team. That's not.
Exactly.
And it's funny you talked about your Jerry Buss school of thought. Earlier you mentioned you're not a trade machine guy. There's like opposite ends of the spectrum. You can be that the homer where we're just gonna draft and develop, which rarely
Yeah.
ever works completely. And then there's
Yeah.
the other side, which is just complete, NBA 2K zealot.
Yeah.
The right answer is probably smack dab in the middle of those two. But it's funny because like you said on Twitter and such, there's no room for nuance. You have to be on either side.
And that's it, man. And I don't play 2K anymore, but I used to always play 2K, and I would trade. I was a trade zealot, and after like 5 games, I was like, my roster's trash. I
don't
got
got no
Darren
defense.
Collison running. Yeah, I got Darren Collison running the point. He's 38. What am I doing? So yeah, no, man. There's better people at that than I am.
Pat Benson Jr., thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Follow him on Twitter at Pat_Benson_Jr. and read his stuff on All Hawks of Sports Illustrated brand. As you know, man, we, like I said, love talking to great people. You see why. We always get great stories. We always get great stuff. Go out and get the book. Okay, the history of Kobe Bryant's shoe history from 1996 to 2020. I didn't get the year wrong this time. So that's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Josh E. Buck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports, website, clockersports.com. Email address is clockersports@gmail.com. And, of course, follow the show on Facebook and Twitter at 3zerospod. That's the number 3 zeros in pod. And read the stuff, heavy.com, heavy on Bulls, soaring down south, and, of course, last word on pro football. Until the very next time, you already know what it is.